On today's show, we have episode number 1 of the rebranded Gridiron 419 podcast. We're going to preview the NLL Buckeye, the NLL Cardinal, and tell you about other teams that you should watch this year in 2026. That's next on the Gridiron 419 podcast. Well, welcome in, everybody. It's been a while since we've seen you. You probably may have known this as the NLL Weekly podcast in the past. We have rebranded. We have changed some things up. Let me give you a quick reason as to why. Basically wanted to cover all of Northwest Ohio high school football. We felt we were leaving some teams out. There were plenty of times, and Dan can speak to this, where we got into talking about teams that weren't in the Northern Lakes League. Not that we're not going to cover it a ton, but there were teams that we wanted to talk about, like Liberty Center, Central Catholic, some of the other big schools in the area that were doing some great things, and we just felt a little hamstrung by not being able to do that. So that's why we rebranded. The cool thing is, though, is we are going to be posting 3 times a week. In the past, we have done super-sized episodes. We've done hour and 49-minute shows. Those are great. We love doing them. The problem is it's a lot to watch at one time. So we're going to try and be a little more timely. On Wednesdays, basically, we're going to have a coach's interview that we're going to talk with a coach, whether that be Justin Keller, who I'm hoping we'll have next week, or Greg Dempsey, or maybe even some of the guys out in Liberty Center, or talk to the head coach, Bill Fisher, out of Genoa. We want to span the whole area, talk with them about what they're doing in their programs, the kids, what makes them tick, all that good stuff. Then on Fridays, we're going to pick 5 games that we're going to preview. We're going to call them our Big 5. So 5 games to talk about. We'll have game previews. We'll have the keys to the game. We'll have a score prediction, all that good stuff. That'll post on Friday mornings, so you can look forward to that. We wanted to, again, be timely with it. We wanted to give you an opportunity to watch stuff, listen to stuff on your way to work while you're at your desk, or whatever the case may be. And then on Saturdays, for the first couple of weeks of the season, we're going to basically do a recap show live on Saturday mornings. Once the college football season gets into full gear, our good buddy Dan has a little bit more stuff to do on Saturdays, so we'll probably move that to Sundays. But even still, we are going to do a live recap show and basically talk about the things that we saw and have it where 3 times a week you're getting high school football all about Northwest Ohio. I love the tagline that we kind of came up with, which is covering the whole 419. That was the goal of this. It's trying to just basically cover everybody everywhere and make sure that all of the areas in Northwest Ohio are getting their coverage. So I'm excited about that. I know when we talked about it, that was something that we both felt like was really important. Not that the NLL wasn't great. And like I said, we won't spend a ton of time not talking about it, but essentially we wanted to make sure we hit all those areas because, darn it, you and I talked about all those other things anyway. We might as well bring it on here and give everybody a little bit of love.
Right. I mean, we're going to do it. So may as well share in the conversation.
Yeah, so excited to get started. And let's go ahead and jump right into our NLL Buckeye preview. Here's how it's going to work. I'm going to give you a top player. I'm going to give you an X factor of what I think is going to make or break my prediction in the season. And then we'll let Dan kind of jump in there with any thoughts he might have. But we're going to run right through them. And we're going to do the NLL Buckeye. We'll talk about the Cardinal. And then I've got the 3 Catholic high school teams that I'll give you a player to watch, some X factors. Some teams in the NBC, they're local. Again, players to watch, X factors there. And then a quick couple of storylines that I find interesting heading into 2026. So again, let's go ahead and jump right into our NLL Buckeye. And these are my 419 predictions. And this is my Buckeye order, at least how I see it shaking out. So I have Perrysburg number 1. I have Whitmer 2. I have Findlay and Anthony Wayne tying for 3rd place. I know that might rub some folks the wrong way. This was a hard one putting Clay 5 because I don't think that Clay is a top 5 or bottom 2 in the Buckeye division team. And then Northview, same thing. You and I watched them last year. I thought they were more competitive than finishing 6th in the Buckeye division. But based off of where we're sitting right now and what I can see, this is my projected order of finish. Is there anything in there just based off of what you know and you saw last year that you would disagree with or surprises you about that order of finish?
No, I think that first thing, part that you mentioned was last, but was first on my mind when we talk about Northview, we said it quite a bit last year, is that this is a team that is putting itself back together. It is still doing so. This is going to take multiple seasons, I think, to kind of restore and rebuild this team. But we're always going to be on the lookout for the week that they catch somebody.
Yeah,
the week that they
they
find,
will,
and they will. It'll be a week where everything will click, and they're able to pull off this upset. They're able to shock someone, and they're going to be able to dramatically affect how this division final standings ends up. And it's hard to say who. It honestly could be anyone, I think.
So, like I said, every team I have a player to watch and an X factor or a person that I think is going to change that order of finish. So I'll start with Perrysburg. The reason I picked them first, they have just about everybody back on offense and on defense. There's not a whole lot that they lost from a year ago. Everybody in that sense basically returns. Reed Gherkin is back, but the player that I have to watch is Brady Maxwell. We saw him last year use his legs, use his arm. I want to see what he looks like with another year with Dirk Connor. I saw some of the things that he had said, meaning Dirk, to the media about feeling like Brady and him are on the same page coming into this year. It's old hat. They're very comfortable with each other. So I want to see what he looks like as a second-year starter in this program. But I believe Perrysburg winning this division is going to factor on one guy individually. Not that he's going to be the only reason, but we saw this in the playoff game last year between Whitmer and Perrysburg. And what was different between that shellacking that Whitmer gave Perrysburg in the first game and the close affair we saw in the playoff game, Liam Nowakowski, the little running back for Perrysburg last year, when he was able to run the football, he was able to keep that playoff game a lot closer for Perrysburg in the second go-around between them and Whitmer. If you look at game number one, Perrysburg kind of abandoned the run in that first matchup a year ago. I believe that in order for Perrysburg to be able to be successful, they have to be able to run the ball with Liam Nowakowski and Brady Maxwell. And Perrysburg and that coaching staff cannot forget that they have Liam Nowakowski on the field. He is too good to not have the ball in his hands several times a game. If he can rush for over 1,000 yards, Perrysburg's going to be really tough to stop this year.
And I'd actually like to see what happens on the other side, on the defensive side there, because there was a lot of experience that has graduated and has moved on, and they're looking to replace a number of starters. So to see what kind of dominance they can run again between the tackles, which was very effective for most of the season and bottling up a lot of running offenses, to see how well that front seven comes together, I think will probably be that X factor, if you will, to kind of determine how far this team can go.
Number two, I had Whitmer, and my top returner, my top player there is Jamon Holmes. I don't think that's a secret to anybody who watched Jamon Holmes play that last year. Biggest question mark for Jamon is, can he handle the bulk of the carries? Last year, that was split between three different running backs and Jaden Jones, Joey Morales, and Jamon. This year, it's largely going to be at least on Jamon early on in the season. He's going to have to be able to tote the rock somewhere between 20 to 25 times a game. Now, as the season progresses, and we'll talk about that X factor here in a moment, that will hopefully change if you're Whitmer, but he is going to have to be the focal point of the offense early on, especially as you're trying to break in some new receivers, also break in some new offensive linemen as well, and some backup running backs or some depth at that running back spot. So Jamon Holmes has to play like the Division I running back that people expect him to be, as he's already committed to play his college football at Western Michigan. My X factor, if you have been around this Whitmer program the last few years, you have heard all about this incoming sophomore class. That would make them, I believe, the class of 2029. Can't believe I'm saying that. But this sophomore class, everybody has penciled in as maybe one of the deepest and most athletic classes that Whitmer High School has had in some time. You will see, to start the year, several of those guys starting, and I believe you will see by the end of the year more of those guys starting. However, if Whitmer wants to excel or supersede my prediction of second place, if they want to win or even tie for the division title again like they did a year ago, those sophomores have to be playing like juniors and seniors come week 10. Now, you and I both know that progress certainly happens naturally, But the biggest jump you will see is between those first, I would say, 3 weeks or so. And where are they at? If they're still playing like sophomores in week 8, 9, and 10, I don't think Whitmer can beat Perrysburg. However, if those guys are playing like guys who have been on the field all season and are playing like upperclassmen veterans, watch out, because Whitmer could be really good, not only closing out that Buckeye division schedule, but also heading into the postseason. I believe they have some super talented sophomores. It's very bright, the future over off of Whitmer and Clegg Drive, but nobody's going to accept the fact that this is a little bit of a quote-unquote rebuilding year unless you can see some of that growth throughout the season. I believe if those sophomores can play at a high level, Whitmer is going to be really tough to stop as well.
I would only add one thing going back to Jamon, because watching him run up close is just an impressive thing. You can see why he was already committed last season to play Division I football. And that might be another X factor, especially throughout this first month of the season. He is a very physical runner.
Very much so. He
gets downhill quickly and takes out anything that happens to be in his way. But the trade-off is that he did spend a lot of the middle of the season and towards the last several weeks banged up, and that kind of, I imagine, readjusted the balance of carries. Well, now that he's going to be the one taking the majority of snaps, will he be able to maintain that style and stay healthy throughout an entire 10-week season?
And that's why it's important, again, for those sophomores to come on, because second running back is a gentleman by the name of Carter Keeling that I know they're extremely excited about, but just a sophomore. They've got Bryce Veronese, who's going to start at free safety, who's just a sophomore. And that's just a couple of the names that I'm sure you'll see throughout the year that are 10th graders. If they can have those guys play above that 10th grade level, if they can have those guys look like seasoned vets by the end of the season, man, I am excited to see what this Whitmer team can do. But it's going to hinge on how fast those guys develop. 2027, 2028 look really bright, but nobody cares about that going into 2026.
No.
Findlay, I had to pick for a tie for third with Anthony Wayne. Their player to watch is Trayson Hyde. Now, a lot of people probably are a little surprised that I would have picked Findlay this high, and I will tell you why. Findlay every year, to me, is able to figure out a way to be competitive since Stephen Adams has been the head coach. They were like that under Mark Ritzler as well. Trayson Hyde is an incredible defensive end for them. He's very good. They've got a couple other guys in Carter Imke, who I almost put on here. So there's other players on this team that could affect this Findlay team. But you remember last year, that was a Findlay team coming into the season, who we'll talk about that X factor in a minute. But quarterback was an area of concern because their presumed starter got hurt very early in the season. They had to pivot offensively to be able to make sure that they were able to compete. They ended up moving Miles Bailey over to quarterback, and then he ended up running more of like a wildcat kind of option. They did throw a little bit, but that really gave Whitmer fits, as that was only a 2-point loss for them. This is a Findlay team that every year I think people discount because of the fact that they get off to a slow start, but I'm not so sure that we'll see that this year. The X factor for them, I just said it, quarterback play. Riley Korkos, I would assume, I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume, just based off of the way the depth chart stacked up coming out of camp last year, that Riley Korkos is going to get the first shot at quarterback. If they can get competent quarterback play and stay healthy at that position and not have to reinvent the wheel a couple of times this year, I believe that this Findlay team is going to have a competent offense, and they'll be able to, much like we've talked about with some of the other teams, and we'll talk about even further as we go along, that they'll be able to surprise some people and be competitive. They almost surprised a couple teams last year. I think they might do it again this year. I like Stephen Adams. I like the program that he's built down there. So again, quarterback play to me is where a lot of that hinges for success for them this year.
100%, and I think that'll be interesting to see. I kind of want to see it because having done this a couple of seasons, and unfortunately, the way things have broken for Findlay over the last 3 or 4 seasons, they haven't had a full year of healthy quarterback play in quite a bit, and have always had to do that shifting on the fly, where they have to adapt their offense, sometimes play by play, depending on what's going on. So it would be interesting. I hope that they're able to get that full season in and not have to alter their plans dramatically and allow everybody to kind of grow organically in a system that stays consistent for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
If they can do that, I'm with you. This is the potential to be a very dangerous team.
Well, and we said this back in 2023 when we actually first brought those games back on the radio for Whitmer, and we saw Ryan Montgomery, who was the starting quarterback as a junior, who's now at the University of Georgia, light up Whitmer in that Week 9 matchup. And then last year, in 24, coming back, he tore his ACL in that first game against Central Catholic, and he was out for the rest of the year. And from then, it's been a little bit of an adventure at quarterback trying to keep guys healthy. I'll be interested to see if it's Riley Korkos or whoever he ends up going with, Coach Adams goes with at that quarterback spot, if they're able to stay healthy for a full 10 weeks. And as you said, be in a system that everybody can finally get comfortable in, where you're not trying to change offensive philosophies and throw everything to the wayside to just be able to be competitive throughout the season. Anthony Wayne is my other tie for third player to watch. Pretty easy. Porter Brungard, pretty solid first season at quarterback. They like to throw it a little bit more last year. Injury's a problem for Anthony Wayne, but they will have Porter Brungard back. They lost a lot, though, and I think on the offensive side of the ball, they can't be one-dimensional. They can't have it where they're trying to have Porter Brungard save them each and every game. Braden Ciceri, that's a name that you'll hear a lot this year. He will likely get the bulk of the carries, at least to start the year, at running back for Anthony Wayne and a remade offensive line. If Anthony Wayne can be an offense that is able to be balanced and that they're not asking Porter Brungard to throw the football 25, 30 times a game, I like Anthony Wayne and be able to supersede this prediction. But they have to be able to be balanced. They have to be able to run the football. That was something they struggled with a little bit a year ago, and that offensive line has to stay healthy. If they can do that, we've seen Andy Brungard do it in the past. He can make magic out in White House. I think he can do it again, but it's going to have to come down to what can these guys do at the running back spot in the offensive line.
Actually, I think that's the case, and that's the case on both sides of the ball. Is rushing philosophy, what they're able to do and keep that offense balanced, as you mentioned. I think we saw, I believe, 2 years ago there at Anthony Wayne that when Anthony Wayne was able to throw the ball just enough to keep the defense honest, they were able to do pretty much everything they wanted to between the tackles. And that'll be, if they're able to get back to that philosophy, great. On the defensive side of the ball, it's the same thing. It's if they own the line the last several years, if they're able to continue and maintain that dominance up front, this is going to be a hard team to run against, which, as we've been talking about in this division, is sort of the bread and butter of this league. And if you can't establish a running game, you're kind of behind the 8 ball to start with. Well, Anthony Wayne has the ability to disrupt whatever running game you want to bring at them. If they're able to do that strongly, yeah, they have a good shot to supersede this middle of the pack finish.
Fifth place, I have Clay. This actually kind of was difficult for me because I think you could make a case to put Clay third, fourth, or fifth, and you could move Findlay and Anthony Wayne around however you want. I would say that Perrysburg and Whitmer may be a step above the rest of the conference right now based off of what we've seen. That could obviously change. So this was difficult for me, especially knowing that Clay upset the Panthers a year ago, even if it was kind of a weird game in general. Hats off to the Clay staff and the program for getting that first win over Whitmer in 20 some odd years. So that is the crowning achievement. How do you build off of that? Well, the player to watch, very easy again, Landon Eckelberry, the quarterback, Division I recruit in football and in baseball. He's a heck of a baseball player. We will see what he looks like year number 2 in this offense. They kind of went to a little bit of an air raid look. The question marks for me, and I think you can say it on both sides of the ball, though I think the offensive line is a little bit more veteran than maybe what the Clay defense is. That defense has to replace a lot of guys, especially on the defensive line and also at the linebacker spots. Clay gave up a lot of points last year in the games that they lost. Even that Whitmer game, the game that they won, if the Panthers don't shoot themselves in the foot with penalties, they probably are able to score more points in that game. But even with all the penalties, Whitmer was still able to put up a fair amount of points. Clay's defense has to be serviceable. They don't have to be the steel curtain. They just have to be serviceable. If they can do that, I could see Clay jumping into that top 3, and heck, who knows, maybe even in the top 2.
I get throw another X factor at you as well to see if wide receiver Max Morrison takes the next step.
Absolutely. Him and Jimmy Durr back. Yep.
Absolutely. And also there's a lot of older talent, upper class talent in this roster. As you said, they're going to be replacing a lot of starters. So it'll be interesting to see how a talented junior class steps into these roles, accepting, the bulk of starts and I've said step up quite a bit, but that's basically what it's all about. It's time, it's next. This is the time for their next man up mentality.
Yeah, time to make some progress. Final team in the NLL Buckeye, Northview. Again, tough to pick them here, not because I don't think that's a justified spot, but like we said already a few moments ago, this was a Northview team that was way more competitive than we expected to be. The final scores don't indicate how competitive they were. I said this multiple times after we saw Whitmer play. They lost 52-10 to the Panthers, but that score did not feel like that midway through the game. And even midway through the third quarter, Northview was driving and had a chance to get the lead down to just 4, their deficit down to just 4 against Whitmer. They ended up turning the ball over on downs. Panthers were able to have a couple quick hitters for scores. The player to watch for me is going to be a sophomore, Steve Wiederhold. When I saw that the Northview Wildcats were starting a freshman at wide receiver last year, I had to double check because I thought, you got to be kidding me. There's no way that this kid's going to be that good. And everybody kept saying he's better than people realize. I'm a believer after watching Steve Wiederhold last year. He's not super fast yet. He's not super big. I'd love to see what he looks like this year with a year off season in the weight room and all the things that you get to do to develop his body. Obviously, hormones and growth and all that stuff take over as well. But he's going to be a guy to watch and a name to watch for years to come at Northview. I like what he adds. They've obviously got to have somebody be able to give him the football, but he gives them a playmaker out at that wide receiver spot. The X factor, you kind of touched upon it already, but it's kind of confidence. And I don't necessarily mean that from a standpoint of taking it where they don't have any. I mean it more of things aren't going to go right. There are going to be games where they look like the Northview that we've seen, but this is a rebuild job for a reason. And I believe when you look at the situation that Northview is in, if they continue to have confidence in themselves, that they are able to stick with the process, to be able to continue to do the things that the coaching staff asks them to do, I think Coach Bach and his staff are going to be able to do even more, and you're going to see even more progress from this group. But they've got to continue to stay confident in this process, because it's very easy when you get thumped in a couple of games to be, I would say, disengaged would be the best way to put it. They can't afford that. They have to continue to stay locked in. If they do that, I believe that it's possible that they don't finish last place in this division.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I know we talked about, they're going to sneak up and they're going to get somebody, maybe some buddies throughout the course of the conference season. And to follow up and to continue in that confidence point, that having the confidence in your game like that is where those little mistakes, those mental mistakes start to narrow that gap there. So you have confidence in yourself. You don't necessarily make the stupid turnovers. You don't necessarily find yourself behind the chains because of dumb penalties, because you're a different mindset of playing. So that will go leaps and bounds to sure. Maybe again, they're going to have a tough time against the upper division, but maybe, as you said, 52-10 becomes 35-17.
Yeah.
Things
and
like
that's
that.
Progress. That's progress.
That's progress. And that's that tangible progress that staff can take them and go, guys, we're on the right road. So trust the process, if you will.
So that'll do it for the NLL Buckeye. Again, predicted order finish: Perrysburg 1, Whitmer 2, Findlay and Anthony Wayne a tie for 3, Clay 5th, and Northview rounding out the Buckeye division. Let's get a read from our good friends over at Car Stereo One. Tonight's Gridiron 419, brought to you in part by Car Stereo One. If you spend a lot of time in your car, why settle for a factory setup that sounds like it? Car Stereo One has been serving Toledo and the surrounding area for more than 30 years, helping drivers upgrade the way their vehicles look, sound, and feel. From car stereo speakers and subwoofers to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, Car Stereo One can help you build a system that fits your ride. And they do a lot more than just audio: remote starters, window tint, custom interiors, vehicle wraps, wheels, and even marine and power sport electronics. Whether you're making a small upgrade or completely transforming your vehicle, let the experts at Car Stereo One help you do it right. You can visit them in person, 3120 Central Avenue in Toledo. Call them on the phone, 419-474-5553, or check them out online at carstereo1.com. Again, Car Stereo One, Toledo's car entertainment leader. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say turtle. So let's go ahead and jump into the Cardinal division, and we'll look at those standings here. Here's what I predicted, or we predict, I should say. Cardinal prediction would be Napoleon 1, not NLL 1. Napoleon 1, Fremont Ross 2, Liberty-Benton 3, Springfield 4, Southview 5, Bowling Green 6. This, to me, between the two divisions, is going to be the closest from 1 to 6 out of any of the leagues that we will watch this year. I believe the margin for error is that small for some of these teams. I went somewhat based off of what we saw a year ago and the way that they finished, but also there are big players for each of those teams that, should they play and stay healthy, I think they make the difference. Let's go ahead and start with Napoleon. Easy choice here. Player to watch, Hayden Grohl. Hayden Grohl came on late after George Eggers got hurt. He ended up being a second-team Ohio running back a year ago in Division 4. He comes back. He ran for over 1,600 yards, 20-some-odd touchdowns. He's going to be the horse that carries this Napoleon offense. Tyler Sweary is going to get a lot of run out of Hayden Grohl. The X factor for this team, though, is going to be their defense. Most importantly, the secondary. A lot of new faces back there. Now, in that Cardinal division, you're not going to see a lot of teams throw the football around, but the problem is going to be if you come up against a team, if you're Napoleon, and you can't slow down the passing game. They have to be stout at the secondary level. They're also going to have to remake that defensive front as well. That defense is going to have to be better as the year goes on. Doesn't have to be perfect to start, but this is always the beauty of that NLL schedule. Division games don't start until the back half of the season, so you're going to get a little bit of time to work your way up. But by the time they get into Cardinal division play, that defense and then most importantly, that secondary have to be playing at a high level.
And you know what? Given the track record of both this team and this coaching staff,
I
don't have any problem believing that that'll be that they'll form up and they'll get there, because everybody who watches this Wildcat team at some point in describing them uses the adjective gritty.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the best descriptor. That is their X factor, and I think that's what's going to carry them through. It's what has carried them through in close games, in tight spots. So I think the defense will easily get there simply because they breathe them a bit tougher out. Napoleon.
They do, and I know we said this last year, but there is something about the Napoleon kids that just make it that much better, and I don't know how else to put it. They just are a tough bunch out there. Next and second, I have Fremont Ross. Our good buddy Ken Winters is the new head coach out there. The guy to watch, in my opinion, is Mason England. He's a wide receiver and defensive back for Ken Winters. I believe that he is going to be a guy that they target a lot on the offensive side of the ball. He is tall, he is fast, he is big, he's quick. He does a lot of the things that you need a wide receiver to do, and also in the secondary. Braylon Garza is going to be back at quarterback for Fremont Ross. The X factor, though, and this is what has bit the Little Giants in the past, is depth and health. And I know you can say that about a lot of these smaller Cardinal school teams, but Ken Winters even said when I talked with him the other day, that's his number one concern. There just aren't the same numbers that you had there at Whitmer. So the margin for error is not going to be nearly as big as far as keeping guys on the field. We'll see if they can do it. If they do, I believe they can challenge Napoleon. I believe the difference that Ken Winters is going to make coaching that team, and that's not a knock on what Chad Long did the last couple of years, but I think he's brought some juice back to that Fremont Ross program. I'm excited to see what he can do.
You jumped on it right there. That depth is what's going to be the decider, because, I mean, we've kind of talked about this the last several seasons, that Fremont Ross always seems to be that team that is right there at the cusp of ready to take the next step, to kind of shoot into that upper echelon in the division. And if they can find some guys that can fill those roles, if they can stay healthy, because I know that was a problem, especially in the Whitmer game last season down there, where they had several starters, go out at a certain point with injuries. if the depth can come through, and I know, like you said, that's a big worry for Coach Winters, but if the depth can come through, they absolutely challenge Napoleon for this division.
Third place is the newcomer, Liberty-Benton. Their player to watch in my mind is Connor Barbara, the quarterback there. He's one of the few guys that is returning that had some experience from a year ago. They do have to replace a lot at wide receiver and running back. The Goodrick brothers, who one is at, I believe, Toledo as a wide receiver. They're going to be a real challenge to figure out how do they replace those guys. But that, to me, is not the biggest X factor. There's a lot of change going on with this Liberty-Benton team coming into this year. You've got a new head coach in Jason Peters. So what does that look like? He comes from Grandview Heights down near Columbus. How does he adjust? How does the team adjust? There will be tests, obviously, throughout the year. How do they respond to his leadership? And then, obviously, the change to the new conference. You're no longer in the Blanchard Valley. You used to be the biggest school in your conference. You're now the smallest school in your conference. I don't believe that affects them. We've seen Napoleon be able to handle that small school moniker without a whole lot of issue. However, how do you handle a lot of the news and being able to kind of survive a lot of that change this year? That's going to be important. Not always easy for a young team to be able to handle all of these new things.
No, the unfamiliarity that everyone will have with them will be a bit of that X factor, and that you're kind of come out of nowhere. But like you said, that they have a very short runway to kind of bring everybody together. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. And it's not exactly an easy lead into the NLL schedule either. I mean, they start at Ottawa Glandorf and then have to go, then host Columbus Globe again, a pair of playoff teams. And then right into it, coming up to Sylvania, facing off with Northview that Labor Day weekend. Day weekend is where I was going with that.
Yeah, it's super late this year too.
Yeah, actually, it's just been throwing everything off.
Kind of does. Yeah,
it really
thrown
does
me off a little bit.
So
normally week 2 is your Labor Day weekend. It's now week 3, which feels weird.
Yeah, and they don't really get much of a respite in their crossover games either with Anthony Wayne and Clay. But before they finally get into divisional play, this will finally be a team that will know exactly where it stands and what it needs to do to compete for a Cardinal Division championship. And probably especially the way that they came together last season, right there in the middle of the division, is probably the best place to call them, I would say.
Springfield is number 4 on my list. Their player to watch is the guy that we didn't get to see a lot of due to an injury, Gabe Gregory, the tailback. Absolutely lightning fast, really kind of set the rushing records on fire last year when he was healthy. He ended up breaking his leg in the game before Whitmer. I believe that was the Anthony Wayne game, and they lost him for the season. He's back. He's healthy. When he is on, he's maybe one of the best backs in Northwest Ohio. I can't wait to see what he brings back to the table. The question mark I have for Sam Arredondo's Blue Devils, and the X factor to me, is offensive balance. They had 3 guys that I read are going to be vying for the quarterback spot. They're replacing wide receivers. The line is a little bit more settled than the other spots, but if you cannot be balanced, teams are going to load that box and try and bring down Gabe Gregory. You have to show. Doesn't have to be, as we talked about earlier, doesn't have to be a out of this world or a huge passing game. It's just got to be serviceable. If they can have a serviceable passing game to keep teams honest, that's going to help them a long way.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's whether or not they can keep a lot of these defenses honest, because if they can do that, then the Blue Devils go as Gabe Gregory goes. This offense will score points as quickly as they're able to get him up the field, as long as, again, they can keep 8 or 9 guys out of the box.
Southview at number 5, Jackson Hesse, the quarterback, is my player to watch for the Cougars. I liked what he did a year ago. The biggest question mark, like I said, we've already talked about with the Fremont Ross Little Giants. Southview has been bitten by the injury bug quite a bit over the last couple of seasons. We saw in the game that they played Whitmer at Whitmer Memorial last year. They lost a lot of guys through those first couple of weeks. That crossover slate that they've been involved in the last few years has kind of been what has snake bit them going into divisional play. If they can stay healthy, I believe that this group can have a bigger run and a lot more impact on who ends up winning that Cardinal division. But the problem has been they have not been healthy the last few seasons. They have to be if they want to be competitive. They just don't have a lot of depth there.
Yep, that's exactly the note I made, which is health. If they can maintain it, they're man, they can shoot up this division. They can affect, like you said, affect who takes the Cardinal crown. If unfortunately they're bit by the injury bug again, it's going to be a long year.
Bowling Green is the 6th place team. I will say, just like I said with Findlay, Anthony Wayne, and Clay and the Buckeye about being able to kind of move them around and make a case for all, I think you can make a case for both all Springfield, Southview, Bowling Green, and Liberty-Benton, that 3 through 6 in the division. I believe Bowling Green at 6, Grant Gillespie, their quarterback, is going to be the number 1 player to watch for them. He's going to be the guy that has to kind of stir the drink and move that offense up and down the field. But the X factor, lots of new faces on defense. If they can be better defensively, that's going to help them tremendously. But the problem a year ago was they gave up way too many points. The one thing I will say that I've loved that Sean Kiss talked about in some of his preseason interviews, and man, we had some fun conversations with Sean Kiss 2 years ago when we first had him on. But Sean said that they are basically doing sprints that are like 2 and 8 sprints, which was the record a year ago. And the team, I guess, is getting absolutely sick of running these 2 and 8 sprints. And they asked him, Coach, when can we stop doing it? And he said, when we're 3 and 7, we'll do those instead. So again, you look at this team, he's really hoping that this team is hungry to be a little bit better than they were last year.
My major question was going to be defense. If they can bring it together and start to chip away at the amount of points given up, that is going to determine how far up the standings they can climb. Period. That's I know that's really simplistic, but it is at a team that's going to have to replace a lot, especially depth wise. It's just, can you come together and make stops? If you can make stops, you can win games. You can give your offense an opportunity to win games. You can climb up this division standings.
Let's look at our Cardinal division predictions one final time. That's Napoleon at 1, Fremont Ross at 2, Liberty-Benton at 3, Springfield 4, Southview 5, and Bowling Green 6. We'll take a quick pause before we look at some of the other teams in Northwest Ohio, and let's thank our friends at Victory Automall as they're proudly supporting Gridiron 419. Finding the right vehicle, important for you. Finding a dealership that makes the process simple can be even more important. Victory Automall is a locally based used car dealership on Lasky Road in Toledo. They offer a wide selection of cars, trucks, SUVs, crossovers, and more. And as a buy here, pay here dealership, that means Victory Automall works to help find customers a vehicle and financing option that best fits their situation. Their focus is on a straightforward, no-pressure buying experience with knowledgeable service and plenty of inventory to choose from. So whether you're looking for your first vehicle, replacing the family car, or just looking for something different, start your search with Victory Automall. Stop by 1632 West Lasky Road in Toledo. Call 419-345-3603 or browse the inventory online at WeFinanceCarsToday.com. Victory Automall, helping Toledo drivers find their next ride. I will say I've driven past the Victory lot a couple of times in the last week, and he literally has like 4 gorgeous-looking Corvettes sitting and facing Lasky every time you drive past. And darn it if I haven't wanted to stop a couple of times. Are you sure you'd do a test drive? Anyway, but
so tempting, but yes.
Nice inventory over at Victory right now if you want to go look. All right, let's talk about some of the other teams in Northwest Ohio to watch out for. Let's start with those Catholic high school teams. Central Catholic, state runner-up a year ago in Division III. Their player to watch very easily, Jeremiah Fuller. He burst on the scene a year ago, was easily the best running back in Northwest Ohio. He was phenomenal. He will have to carry this offense. The biggest question for me about whether Central Catholic can win a state championship is going to be quarterback play. And I know, once again, kind of like you said just a few moments ago, that sounds very simplistic, but I thought quarterback was kind of what held them back at times last year, and also when they excelled and beat teams that people didn't think they were going to beat. You look at that state championship game, they got shut out 30-0 in that game, but had chances to score. And oftentimes it was when Bishop Watterson, who we'll talk about in our preview on Friday, Bishop Watterson took away the run game and forced Ali Baydoun to throw the football. Now, Central had a transfer quarterback in, so I think there was a little bit of a battle for that quarterback spot. You might even see both guys, but quarterback play has to elevate Central Catholic. They're easily another year of being a state contender. They're in Division II this year. It's a harder path, which means it's even more important for quarterback play to be better.
Just as important, I feel, especially since you're taking that step up and improving that schedule. Yeah, I want to need to see some improvement in the secondary play. As you mentioned, they get torched 30-0 in the state championship game. A lot of that came to extra yards given up after the catch, and they kind of were vulnerable on the bigger receiver side throughout the season. So if that unit can step up and play a little bit more lockdown, especially on the outside, they have a good chance to repeat their success in a new division.
And you got to figure out a way to basically replace Victor Copeland, who's now at Texas A&M, who was maybe one of the best defensive backs they've ever had over on Cherry Street. So not an easy shoes to fill over there.
No.
Let's go from Cherry Street to Airport Highway, St. John's. The Titans had a good first year under Joe Horn in his first season at the helm. They moved from Division II to Division I because they chose to. They think it is a better opportunity for them to get into the playoffs. They were held out of Division II Region 6 last year due to playoff points. They feel they've got a better chance in Division I Region 2. Their player to watch, in my opinion, is a new, fresh face. Reed Berry, a quarterback, transferred from Grand Haven, Michigan. He has offers from Bowling Green and Toledo. He will have to continue that great play. They had good quarterback play from Coy Hammock a year ago. Reed Berry's going to have to be that for them again this year. Their X factor, in my opinion, is their secondary. They let up 30 points per game, and it's all new faces in the secondary right now. So Joe Horn's team needs to be able to stop the passing game of opposing teams, or it's going to be long nights. They cannot afford to have to outscore everybody week in and week out.
No, in fact, if you want to take a look at some of the other Division I quarterbacks just around here, they're going to get tested quite a bit. I imagine they're going to get thrown on or attempt to get thrown on quite a bit. And again, that the secondary will be the determining factor in that one. If they're able to shut down the outside, get some stops, allow the offense to take their time in scoring as well. Because if my read is correct, and it very well may not be, but this won't be a quick strike offense. This is going to be one that could actually grind you down with some extended drives. If the defense can give the offense more of a chance to do that, there's a big chance for success there.
And Reed Berry's a big kid. I don't know if anybody's seen photos of him, but he looks like he's 6'1", 6'2", maybe 190-ish type frame. So he's going to be able to run the football a little bit, I think, as well. St. Francis, Bancroft, player to watch, in my opinion, Kingston Berry. He's a defensive back and also a wide receiver for the Knights. He is going to be critically important. That secondary in general for St. Francis is probably the most experienced part of the team. All three of those guys are also going to play on the offensive side of the ball. The X factor to me, though, is going to be the offensive backfield. How do you replace Eli Beal, who was everything for St. Francis offensively? He graduated after last year. He was a star his last 2 years at St. Francis. They also have Thomas Nowajeski at quarterback, who played a little bit last season, but he's going to need some help, and they're going to have to be able to run the football consistently. Josh Linke actually said in a couple of previews that I had seen that this is actually, in his mind, maybe his least talented team, but it's his team that's most together. But that backfield, I don't care how together you are as a one mind, one body kind of thing. If you can't run the ball, it's going to be a long season for Thomas Nowajeski. And one more point that I want to make about the St. Francis team, they go back up to the biggest division, that Central Division in the Catholic High School League. They were playing in that AA division with some of the smaller schools. They get bumped back up this year. Contests get a lot tougher this year, especially in that Catholic High School League slate.
That is rough. I was unaware that they had that.
Yes.
Division system as well that kind of flips things around. So that makes the importance of establishing a running game early that much bigger.
Good news is they start against Waite, not anything against the Indians, but they should be able to get an idea at least of who can fill those shoes a little bit this coming week. In the Northern Buckeye Conference, Genoa was able to break a streak of years that they did not win the Northern Buckeye Conference. Excuse me. And so their player to watch in my mind is Jackson Magnon, who is a wide receiver tight end. He actually was the back of the year in the Northern Buckeye Conference. I'm curious to see what he can do. Bill Fisher said this is actually, he thinks, his deepest team that he's had since he's been at Genoa so far. He's looking for continued success for the Comets this year. The X factor in my mind, and this is kind of what I just alluded to, how do you handle expectations? This is a team that has been the underdog in recent years. Now, all of a sudden, you have to be the team that holds off people again. What do? Can they do it? Can you go from being the hunter to the hunted?
Yeah, that's all mentality, and that's what they're working on right now, as they get ready for kickoff this weekend. Is having that mentality. It is a challenge to kind of flip that from being the one from climbing the mountain and always reaching up to staying on top of the mountain and trying to defend yourself.
Second that I want to talk about, Eastwood. Eastwood, the same player is my player to watch and also my X factor, because I think he's that important to the outcome of the season for the Eastwood Eagles, and that's Braden Luthart. He is my player to watch and also my X factor. Braden Luthart is taking over at quarterback. He actually was a receiver a year ago. His brother was the starting quarterback. His brother got hurt. Braden had to step in and be the starting quarterback for half the season. Then his brother got healthy again. He got moved back out to wide receiver. He's back to quarterback to start the year. If Eastwood can get solid quarterback play this year, I think the Eagles will absolutely challenge for that NBC title. They have some difficult tests awaiting them, but Braden Luthart, based off of the limited sample size we saw a year ago, if he's able to continue that progression, I think Eastwood will definitely be in the conversation and certainly can make a run in the postseason.
And that's exactly it. How fast can he get comfortable in a full-time role again?
On the Maumee Panthers, who are in the NBC now, Evan Karchner maybe has done the best job of any coach over the last couple of seasons with a football program from bringing a rags to riches story. Again, the Panthers, their player to watch in my mind is a wide receiver by the name of Eli Dodson. He was phenomenal. He's one of the few guys that are returning that had a significant role on that offense. The X factor for them, how do you replace their quarterback, Ben Kubitz, who Ben Kubitz was a phenomenal baseball player as well, but Ben Kubitz was just about Mr. Everything for Maumee a season ago. They will have to find a way to replace his talents. Not an easy lift for Maumee, and they're going to have to find out really quickly because they go on the road to open the season at Springfield this Friday night.
Yep, that's the main thing, is finding a way to replace all of that production. And if it comes with an increased rushing attack, then that might be the way to ease whoever wins the starting job into this offense.
Otsego, the Knights, are going to be led by Mason Kramer at running back. He's one of the few returners from a year ago. Their biggest hole is the defensive line. They're trying to remake that defensive front. Craig Rutherford said that's going to be really crucial to them. He felt like they gave up way too many yards on the ground a year ago. And the last team I want to highlight from the Northern Buckeye Conference, the Oak Harbor Rockets. Their player to watch in my mind is Micah Miller, who is an all-league linebacker. He's going to also play running back this year for Coach Mays. Their X factor, their skill positions are barren. This is the youngest that Oak Harbor has been in several years, and Mike May is very concerned about what that looks like. It'll be fun because you'll get to learn a lot about your team this year, and you'll get to see that progression that we've talked about with so many of those teams that are playing younger guys. But some of those first couple of weeks, you may want to pull your hair out, and I will wait and see what Oak Harbor looks like because they've been really good. I would say a little bit of a disappointing ending to the season last year, but we'll wait and see how they end up looking like when things are all said and done.
And another quick note on Otsego, while they may be replacing a number of starters, and that's going to take a lot of catching up, it's going to get guys familiar and comfortable. There are a number of guys that have played quite a bit. So the experience may be there, but not necessarily as a starter and playing at that expected starter level. So once again, we see who will step up, who's going to be the next man up, and how quickly will they come to solidify that spot.
Some quick storylines that I think we'll also focus on this year. I didn't necessarily highlight them just because there's a lot of new faces out at Ottawa Hills, but they have their first season in the Sandusky Bay Conference. They are moving from the Toledo Area Athletic Conference to the SBC, and you want to talk about a jump in competition on the football side. It is going to be a much more stiffer test for Ottawa Hills than what you saw in the Toledo Area Athletic Conference. We saw them struggle a little bit in the TAC last year once they added in Whiteford and Summerfield and Erie Mason. This is going to be a whole different challenge. New head coach out there, a lot of new faces. I'll be interested to see the way that the Green Bears handle moving to the SBC. We already talked about this a little bit. St. John's jumps to Division I. Does that make their pathway to the playoffs easier? Obviously, we'll have to wait 10 weeks to find out. Central jumping to Division II. A lot of people have made comments about, well, it's easy to win in Division III. Let's see them in a higher division. I don't subscribe to that theory. However, it will be a tougher test. There are some more blue blood programs in Division II that Central's going to have to navigate around. And then Findlay falls from Division I to Division II. Does that change anything for the Trojans? They have made the playoffs, but they have not necessarily made runs in the playoffs. Does this allow them to be a little bit better come postseason time? Those are some of the things I think that we'll have to keep an eye on as far as what kind of effect those stories and how they develop throughout the season and kind of what the respective things mean for each of those teams. Before we get out of here, want to say thank you to our friends at Howell Properties, LLC. Tonight's Gridiron 419, again, brought to you by Howell Properties. Selling a home doesn't always happen under perfect circumstances. Maybe you inherited a property, have a rental you're ready to move on from, need to relocate, or simply don't want to deal with repairs, showings, and the traditional listing process. That's where Howell Properties can help you. Howell Properties is a local Toledo area cash home buyer that purchases houses as is, meaning you don't have to spend a time or money cleaning up or making costly repairs before selling. They can provide a no-obligation cash offer within 24 hours, no agent commissions or fees, and you can choose a closing timeline that works for you. In qualifying situations, closing can happen in as little as 7 days. If you have a property you're thinking about selling, call Howell Properties at 419-273-7355 or visit HowellPropertiesLLC.com. Howell Properties LLC, a simpler way to sell your home. That is going to do it for our preview. Really quickly, though, as I said at the outset of the show, we are going to be doing a Friday preview. We're going to have 5 games for you. We're going to break down those 5 games. We're also going to give you a slate of other ones to watch this coming weekend. So make sure you look for that on Friday night. We appreciate if you would like and subscribe the show. Some of you have already been here with us since we've been the NLL Weekly Podcast. Please show the same kind of love for us at Gridiron 419. This is a labor of love for Dan and I. We make a little bit of money off of it, but really reality is this has been about trying to figure out ways to highlight all of Northwest Ohio and the 419. So excited about that. So please like and subscribe. You can also get an audio version of this podcast every week. They'll post on the same days that we post on YouTube. So wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, Podcast Addict, and the like, you can check those all out there as well. So again, please like and subscribe on those outlets as well, as that will certainly help the channel. And I would also ask if you would comment as well. If there are things you want to see, people you think we should talk about, this is going to be a community-based show, much like the NLL Weekly was. So let us know. Who do you think we should talk to? What should we be covering? And we'll do some deep dives and talk about those things as well. That's going to do it for our season preview here on Gridiron 419. We'll see you on Friday with our first week game previews. Until then, bye-bye, everybody.